Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Brave Emily. Chapter 2, Hot Cross Buns. Emily knew the truth about herself. She was not brave. She only pretended to be brave, and even that was hard for her to do. She had been sure that nothing could have been harder than acting brave than waving goodbye to Mom and Dad in London, not knowing that when she'd see them again, and watching out the train window as they shrank smaller and smaller until they disappeared. Nothing could be harder than acting brave while she was on the huge gray ship from England as it slunk sneakily across the endless cold ocean, in constant danger of being sunk by German torpedoes. Nothing could be harder than acting brave when she stumbled, exhausted off the bus in Jefferson, expecting to be scooped up in the familiar arms of Aunt Primrose, only to be met by Mrs. McIntyre, who, though very nice, was a complete stranger. Emily thought nothing could be harder than acting brave when Mrs. McIntyre took her home to a house confusingly full of noise and children where everything was new and different to her. But she had been wrong. Hardest by far had been acting brave last Monday, the first day she went to school with Molly. Emily hated being the center of attention, so she'd gone stiff with shy self-consciousness when the children crowded around her. She kept her answers to their questions clipped and short. Even so, when the children repeated what she said, imitating her accent so that she feared they were making fun of her, she hadn't really known how to answer their questions anyway. How could she possibly describe to Molly and her friends, who were so safe and carefree and comfortable, how terrible it was to sleep underground in a 2-station, or to see a house bombed, or a house explode, or to always be cold? If she had told the truth, she'd sound like a complaining crybaby. Grandy had said she must always remember that she was British and that British never complain. They grin and bear it. But sometimes grinning and bearing it felt as dishonest as pretending to be brave. Take this morning, for example. Emily skipped downstairs to breakfast because of her talk with Molly the night before, happy because it was the end of the school week Friday, and happy she was wearing a pretty spring frock and cardigan that Aunt Primrose had delivered for her. But when she sat at the table, her happiness collapsed. Oatmeal, Ricky groaned, expressing everyone's dismay. We've had that sticky old stuff every day this week. Do we have to have it again? Yes, said Miss Guilford firmly. We want our guest Emily to watch the ice, and it was the breakfast she used to having in England. Isn't that home, Emily? Emily was torn. Mrs. Guilford was partly right, because eggs, butter toast, jam, and bacon were in short supply. Emily had been oatmeal for breakfast every morning since rationing had began 4 years ago. But Mrs. Guilford was also wrong. Emily had never particularly liked oatmeal to begin with. Now she was heartily sick of it. But Emily knew it would be rude to say so. Emily's note told her to be good, tidy, obedient, and honest while in America. But most of all to be polite and grateful, and so Emily said, "Yes, quite, thank you, Mrs. Guilford," and ate her oatmeal. She could feel Jill, Ricky, and Molly looking at her unhappily. Emily didn't blame them. She was very sorry to do anything that might jeopardize her just beginning friendship with Molly. She wanted to hug Brad when he manfully ate a big spoonful of oatmeal and said stoutly, "Well, I like it." "Well, I don't," said Ricky flatly. Mrs. Guilford glared, but Ricky was undaunted. Emily was always a little shocked at how spoken American children were, and the rather cheeky way they blurted out what they were thinking. She watched fascinated as Ricky poured so much milk on his oatmeal that was twice her daily milk ration in England, and he nonchalantly helped himself to a banana, sliced on his oatmeal, and proceeded to eat a bowl full what now looked like a banana float. Bananas were an exotic fruit to Emily. They had not been available for England for so many years that once, when a girl had one, she brought it to school so that all the children could see and smell it. "Would you like more oatmeal, Emily?" Mrs. Guilford asked. Emily summoned her grit. "Thank you. No, Mrs. Guilford," she said politely. "I better not. In England there are posters everywhere that say, 'Don't take more than you can eat.'" "Very wise," said Mrs. Guilford with approval. "It wouldn't work on me," said Ricky breezily. "In my case, I always want to eat more than I'm allowed to take." Everyone laughed at Ricky's wisecrack, even Mrs. Guilford. On playground after lunch that day. Emily and Molly were playing hopscotch with Molly's two friends, Linda and Susan. Emily, Susan sighed, I love your new dress. Cherries and cherry blossoms, twirl so we could see. Emily twirled in a small circle and Susan oohed and ahed ecstatically. Emily was embarrassed by the intention, but she was a little pleased too. Clothing was rationed in England, and it had been a long time since she had a dress that was brand new. She smiled shyly to have her new dress admired. Even, even level-headed Linda was approving. I like that cardigan, she said to Emily. It looks good unbuttoned. You know, when we got you here, you could wear your sweater up to your chin. You looked cold all the time. You sort of acted cold, too. And standoffish. Not standoffish, just standbackish, soft-hearted, Susan said quickly. Anyway, we're glad you weren't a show-off. I guess it took a little time for us to get used to you and how you're English, said Molly. And it took time for you to get used to us and how we're American, right? Quite right, said Emily. Quite right, echoed Molly, Linda, and Susan cheerfully. Emily felt cheerful, too, and as warmed by the girls' sunny friendliness as she was by the bright spring sunshine, she knew now the girls weren't making fun of the way she spoke. They were just being playful when they repeated what they said. Also, Emily was an observant girl. She had noticed that Molly was thoroughly good-natured, that Susan was never unkind, and that, although blunt, Susan didn't soften the truth, she never poked fun at anyone but herself. The bell rang. As the girls went inside to their classroom, Emily wondered, was she getting used to Americans? She was still taken aback by how large, loud, rowdy, and rambunctious children were. Her school in England had girls only, so she was especially unaccustomed to boys' boisterousness. Just now, the boys were tossing a wadded-up ball from desk to desk, even though it was the teacher. Miss Campbell had clapped her hands for order. Boys and girls, I am waiting, said Mrs. Campbell. Emily sat up straight and silent. She wanted Mrs. Campbell to like her so much as she wanted Molly and Molly's friends to like her. Emily was rewarded with a smile from Miss Campbell, and much to her surprise, a wink. In Emily's experience, teachers in England never winked at their students. I say, we have one good citizen in our classroom this afternoon, said Miss Campbell. Emily's ready. When eventually all the children were quiet, Miss Campbell began the lesson. She asked, who can tell me some of the ways that children in the home front support our soldiers fighting in the war? Almost every hand in the room shot up. Miss Campbell called on Allison Hargate. We collect scrap metal and paper and rubber, said Allison, so that it can be used to make weapons and things the soldiers need. We buy war stamps, said Howie Munson, and take plane identification classes so we can tell if it's our planes or the enemy's. We help the Red Cross pack boxes of books and warm blankets to send to soldiers, said Molly. We're careful not to waste food or clothes or electricity, said Linda. Or hot water, Woody Halsey called out. That's why I never take a bath anymore. Ew. Everyone howled delightfully. Woody's joke was met with such uproarious laughter. Howie Munson jumped up from his seat and pretended to scrub Woody with imaginary soap. Woody pretended to shampoo his hair, which made the class laughing harder. Please be seated, Howie, said Miss Campbell. You too, Woody. Class, settle down, please. When order was restored, Miss Campbell said, when we support our soldiers in all the ways they mentioned, we are being patriotic. Miss Campbell wrote patriotic on the blackboard. Who can tell me some of the things that made us feel patriotic? The flag, said Molly enthusiastically. Everyone nodded. President Roosevelt on the radio, said Grace Littlefield, and pictures of Mrs. Roosevelt in the newspaper visiting wounded soldiers. Newsreels of battleships and tanks, said a boy named Josh. Excellent answer, said Miss Campbell. You have all your thinking caps on this afternoon, I see. Then she asked, how about you, Emily? Can you tell us something that makes people in England and America feel patriotic? Everyone turned to look at Emily. She was so eager to answer that her heart thumped like a drum. Suddenly, Emily brightened. Music, she said. Marching and bands and military music always make people feel patriotic. Emily was pleased when everyone murmured in agreement with her answer. Miss Campbell beamed. Splendid, she said. Just the answer I was looking for. Music makes us feel patriotic when we hear it, or sing it, or play it on an instrument. And that is why Miss Campbell paused and looked at the children with sparkling eyes before she went on. Our PTA here at Willow Street School has decided that every member of our class is going to be given a musical instrument on loan. It's called a flutophone, and it's like a clarinet. You'll eventually learn how to sing patriotic songs on it. Hooray, cheered the class. Emily, feeling loose and daring, cheered too. She was just as excited as everyone else. Though she did not go as far as Howie Munson and Woody Halsey, who stood up and pretended that their hands were clarinets, wiggling their fingers wildly as they played pretend keys and made tootling sounds. Look at us, said Howie. We're going to be great at the flutophones. Miss Campbell laughed tolerantly. We'll just see how well you do with the real thing, she said, starting to hand out the flutophones. By the end of the afternoon, Emily noticed that Miss Campbell was not laughing anymore. Her hair, which was normally smooth and tidy, had frizzled to frazzled whips around her face. And her face looked frazzled too. Miss Campbell had told the children not to play their flutophones until she had finished handling them all out and demonstrated how to play them correctly. But the flutophones were so wonderfully sleek and new that no one could resist just one little toot. So the classroom was filled with a cacophony of blasts, honks, squeaks, and the occasional ear-splitting screech. Many of the children seemed to be under the impression that the harder they blew, the better. Their screeches, which were especially ear-splitting, were accompanied by a chorus of children yelling at them to cut it out. Miss Campbell had to flick the lights for order since no one could hear above the ruckus. Over and over again, Miss Campbell showed the children where to place their fingers on the flutophone in order to play Hot Cross Buns. Emily was glad Hot Cross Buns was her first song because she knew the tune already. She watched and listened diligently as Miss Campbell patiently showed the children how to follow the notes printed on their sheet music. Emily couldn't hear her own playing very well, but it seemed to her that hardly anyone was hitting the right note at the right time. Well, said Miss Campbell when the children lined up to go home, I think we can all agree that's going to take a lot of practice. You can say that again, said Linda. I'm going to give you practice cards as you leave. I want you to write down how much time you practice on your flutophone every day so that you can keep track of it. Ask your grown-up to sign your cards. In a week or two, I'll check to see how much you practice. Remember, practice makes perfect. Emily folded her sheet music and neatly tucked her practice cards inside it. Then she, Molly, Linda, and Susan practically flew out the door of the school. They could not wait to go to Molly's house to play their flutophones. The girl rushed in the kitchen, all abuzz with excited self-importance. Look, said Molly. All four girls held out their flutophones to show Mrs. Guilford. What are those? Asked Mrs. Guilford. Flutophones, said Molly. Mrs. Guilford said, just what we need. Which Emily recognized an example of an American saying the exact opposite of what she meant. Listen, said Molly. The girls began to play more or less together. But they had played only 3 notes before Mrs. Guilford held up her hand to stop them. What are you doing? She asked. Why, playing Hot Cross Buns, of course, said Molly. Mrs. Guilford raised her eyebrows, looking unconvinced. Take an apple for your snack, each of you, she said. Then take your flutophone to the garage. Lay them out there, not in here. Off you go, lickety split. The girls took their apples and climbed up the stairs to the living room over the McIntyre's garage. Their enthusiasm was only the tiny bit cooled by Mrs. Guilford's chilly reaction to their playing. I know that, said Molly. This time let's take turns. Yes, said Linda. Maybe it'll sound better. You go first, Emily, because you're the guest, Susan said graciously. Oh, dear me, no, said Emily Pinchy. She didn't want the girls to hear how poorly she played. They think she was pitiful. I can't play all that well yet. Are you kidding? Linda asked. We all stink. Don't worry, Emily, said Molly more kindly. We're all just beginners. Emily did not want to let Molly down, so she took a deep breath and very slowly she played her flutophone, singing the song in her head. Hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. When she finished, Molly, Linda, and Susan stared at her in such shocked silence that Emily trembled. And suddenly, all three girls surprised Emily by bursting into applause. Gosh, gushed Susan, that was great, Emily. Yes, agreed Linda. Can you read music? Because I can actually tell you were playing Hot Cross Buns. Molly smiled at Emily as if she were proud of her. Music, she said. Here's another good thing you're good at, Emily, because you're just like you're good at math. And being neat and tidy and proper and ladylike. Susan listed. Emily smiled, but uncertainly. The girl's praise made her feel a little nervous. She really wasn't musical at all. All she knew about reading music came from singing hymns in church, where she'd learned that if the notes went up the lines of the staff, that meant her voice should go up too. The fact that she could play Hot Cross Buns was just a Flutophone flute. She tried to tell the girls, "Thank you," she said, "but you're really good," Molly interrupted, waving away Emily's protest. "You won't say so because you're just being not a show-off again, as usual," added Susan. "You're a million trillions better than we are," Linda exaggerated. "If you don't believe it, just listen to me." Linda began to play, so Emily didn't have a chance to insist that the girls were all wrong, that, as Molly would say, that she was not good at music. But the secret truth was that in her heart of hearts, Emily did not want to disillusion the girls. It felt so wonderful to bask in their warm admiration. It felt Emily feel like a good-fledged friend for the first time. After all, Emily said to herself, if I let them think I'm good at music, I'm only exaggerating a little, like Americans do. What harm could there be in that? And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.